this ill-tempered exchange between India and Canada has led to many Canadian skeletons tumbling one after the other out of an old cupboard of dirty Canadian secrets.
India has retaliated. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today, we've got the Indian news have come back and retaliated to Justin Trudeau and his den of thieves, leaking information to the Washington Post, painting the Indian government, the Modi government, in a bad light. And now the Indian news are striking back at Justin Trudeau. They are accusing him of planting a terror lord from India, a man who's committed crimes, assassinated someone, and done many other bad things. They're accusing Justin Trudeau of planting this guy in the government, working for the government. This is not April Fool's. Things are just getting crazier here in Canada. Let's jump into it.
Canada, a country that has accused India, as you well know, has just been forced to make the most shocking admission, viewer. And I hope both the Canadian and Indian public are listening very carefully to what I'm about to tell you. The Canadian government has been forced, viewer, to confirm that a man designated as a terrorist by India, a man accused in the murder of a Shaurya Chakra awardee, a man reported to be a member of a group that is banned even by Canada, and is a Canadian government employee. That's the man you see on your screen here. That's right. A terrorist named Sandeep Singh Sidhu, who India has officially made an extradition request for, is a Canadian government employee. In other words, the salary of a man designated as a terrorist and wanted by the world's largest democracy is a Canadian government employee whose salary is paid by the Canadian public.
So just a little recap on this Sandeep Sidhu. He's wanted for multiple crimes in India and in Punjab. As they mentioned, they say he ended someone. As they said, they wanted him back. Canada wouldn't give him back. He is employed by none other than the CBSA, the Border Services Agency.
The Canada Border Services Agency, or CBSA, a government entity entrusted with the very sensitive task of border security, has confirmed to an Indian news portal that Sandeep Singh Sidhu is one of its employees. I hardly need to spell out the alarming implications of this admission, but I shall do so because it has become clear now that the Trudeau government is keener to accuse journalists like me for foreign interference rather than even acknowledge how bad this looks for Canada internationally. That Prime Minister Trudeau's accusations have led to strained relations between the two countries is an understatement. Both countries have stripped each other, as you well know, of their high commissioners, and this ill-tempered exchange between India and Canada has led to many Canadian skeletons tumbling one after the other out of an old cupboard of dirty Canadian secrets. But the Sandeep Singh Sidhu admission by the Canadian government takes things to a dangerous new level. This confession by the Canadian government made to the Prince reporter Bismi Tuskin adds an alarming dimension to India's allegations against Canada. This angle confirms that Canada is not only a safe haven for India-designated terrorists, but that Canada actively employs them into state-funded positions.
If you saw on the screen here, it says CBSA Superintendent in Abbotsford, BC. Apparently, this is one of Canada's dirty skeletons that have fallen out of the closet. These guys are hilarious.
Of a sensitive nature that actually require extra background checks and scrutiny. Did you know that the CBSA, the Border Security Agency of Border Services Agency of Canada, that employs this terrorist Sandeep Singh Sidhu, do you know what it does? It's the Canadian state agency responsible for border security, immigration enforcement, and facilitating legitimate trade and travel. Just think about that for a moment, viewer. And I know the Canadian public is watching this as well very closely. A man wanted by the world's largest democracy, that is India, designated as a terrorist by India's National Investigation Agency, and likely a member of a youth extremist group banned even in Canada, is in a position to influence Canada's border security, immigration, trade, and travel. How has a person with ties to terror activities been able to secure a government job in Canada?
So just a quick recap here. They've got a bunch of information on the screen. Member of Banned International Sikh Youth Foundation. Accused of ties with Sikh separatist Gurjot Kaur. Accused of links with Pakistani-based T-word, this guy. involved in cross-border smuggling of narcotics weapons, promotes bad activities in Punjab, accused of assassination of this guy. So I don't know if all these allegations are true or not, but it seems like a lot of allegations is probably not a good dude.
Especially in a sensitive area like border services, where the recruitment process involves some of the deepest screening of any Canadian government body. The only possible explanation is that Sandeep Singh Sidhu has been deliberately handpicked, deliberately chosen by the Canadian government to fill a sensitive post, specifically so that his criminal skills can be harnessed and deployed for other reasons, perhaps to facilitate the passage of criminals and separatists from Punjab to Canada.
Wow, so this guy is saying that this guy was planted by Trudeau's government into the CBSA so he can get more of these separatists and bad guys out of India into Canada to further the movement in Canada. Wild.
For all of Trudeau's grandstanding about terror, the Sandeep Singh Sidhu issue is a landmine that the Trudeau government cannot sidestep and has had no choice but to admit to when asked. The employment of Sidhu at the CBSA is a hilarious contradiction to Canada's stated position on counterterrorism. It also completely undermines, if not exposes, Canada's criticism of India for allegedly targeting individuals on foreign soil, as it implies a willingness to overlook and accommodate those accused of terrorism by India, even in public government positions. At the very least, Canada's admission that it employs Sandeep Singh Sidhu in a government job proves India's point, doesn't it, View? I'm sure you agree with me. And it gives the Indian government enormous leverage to argue that Canada's leniency towards individuals with extremist or terrorist links poses a threat to India's national security. Whether it is Canadian National Police documents suggesting the Canadian government's direct role in the Air India Kanishka bombing in 1985, or the public funding of a designated terrorist in government jobs, Canada has reached a reputational point of no return.
India's coming back swinging. This is basically a response because after information was sent over, was leaked to the Washington Post to say that the Indian government, Modi's right-hand man, was behind all of the attacks in Canada, the mobs going around shooting people. This is what India's come back with. We're having essentially a jousting war between the top of India and Justin Trudeau. Absolutely wild. This makes Trudeau look very bad, considering a lot of places want a background check before you even get a job. Most of the work, expect my last job request, I get a background check. Unbelievable. I think there's more than one. Democracy's over in Canada. Only thuggery works. Yeah. Kudos to Canada. What a downfall from the country from Justin Trudeau. No way they can justify this guy working for the CBSA, aka Canadian Customs. He should be on the terror watch list plus no-fly list. How did he get into Canada with an international warrant for his arrests? These are great questions. Just one terror lord is employed by the government. That's actually rather discriminatory, given that Trudeau has brought in thousands of thousands of T-word people in. Edmonton Mayor Sohi spent 18 months in prison in India as a terror person. Now he is the mayor after being Trudeau's infrastructure minister. The infiltration is deep, folks, all thanks to Justin Sparkle Socks Trudeau. Go back and review JT's trips to India. That's a great point there. Sohi. And with this Indian news, we've got this one here. We got Harrison Faulkner of True North, and he was on the panel here. They asked him to be on. It was basically a hit piece on Faulkner, though. Heads up.
But Mr. Faulkner, let me bring you in here. And I want to ask you this question. How many Pakistani diplomats have you thrown out of your country for squeezing the human rights of Sikhs, of other Muslims, minority Muslims, and Hindus? How many have you questioned? Since you speak about human rights all over the world and you're so interested in upholding Sikh rights here in India. Can you answer me this, Mr. Faulkner?
I can't answer that question because I don't know the answer to it. But what I can say is that the attacks that we saw yesterday outside of the Hindu temple, I believe, are the result of four concrete reasons why we're starting to see this issue taking place more often. The first, it appears, is because the Indian government believes it can police its diaspora population around the world, the same way that the Chinese government does, the same way the Iranian government does. They believe that if they have an issue with an Indian national that lives or is a citizen of a foreign country, they can police that and they can even go and potentially kill. that citizen. That is one thing that I think is, quite frankly, undisputable if you read the FBI indictment that was released a couple of weeks ago. The second reason that we're starting to see this issue is because the people, I would call it a very vocal and significant minority of Indian immigrants that have come to Canada over the past 4 or 5 years, maybe even longer, since Justin Trudeau came to office, behave in a way that is not Canadian. The people, I'm calling it a minority here, they do not respect our Canadian values and our Canadian way of life, regardless of their religion, if they are Sikh, if they are Khalistani, if they are Hindu, if they are Indian nationalist. In our country, we have religious tolerance. We do not cause fights and violence outside of religious areas. It's not just the Indian population that we're seeing. It's also many of these Palestinian supporters who decided to go and attack a synagogue recently. This is un-Canadian. This is not Canadian behavior. And not only is it just that...
I'm glad he brought that up. It's not Canadian behavior. We don't act like that here, and I don't like that that culture is being brought here. Their clan wars are being brought here. We don't want that here.
This religious issue, we're seeing many recent Indian immigrants into our country openly abuse Canadian law enforcement officers and commit crimes at a significant rate. The third reason we're seeing this is because Justin Trudeau has opened up our borders to millions of people, especially over the past 3 or 4 years, a large number of them from India. Indian problems are becoming Canadian issues. And frankly, the majority of Canadians don't care about this. They don't take a side over the other. It's not a concern to them. Okay. And lastly, the Khalistan movement, I will just say the Khalistan movement is deeply embedded in Canadian politics. We're seeing that here. We've known this issue for a long time. That's why politicians are refusing to call out Khalistanis. They're emboldened. They're clearly very upset. And those are the reasons why I think we're seeing this.
Okay, so Mr. Faulkner, can I ask you 3 quick questions?
Sure.
You said that the Indian government thinks that it can police its diaspora and that it thinks it can go into another country and kill citizens of that country. That's what you said, right. Because they perceive them to be a threat to Indian interests. That's what you said, right?
That's not just what I said. That's what the
That's
FBI
right. So you do admit that you said that. Did Canada support Israel going into Lebanon? Did Canada support the taking down of Osama bin Laden? Yes or no?
Israel's in a war.
I'm asking you a question. Yes or no?
Is in a war against
yes or no, Mr. Faulkner? Yes or no?
Yes, the answer is yes. Because
yes, the answer is yes. So Canada thinks it can police the world, viewers.
No,
that it can kill. No, hang on.
No, it does not.
It's an interesting, rebuttal there from Harrison. He's basically saying they're in war with them. So, there's really no rules in war, but Canada is not in a war with India.
Hang on. It can kill Mr. Khan's idol. It can kill Mr. Khan's freedom fighter. And this is Mr. Khan sitting there in Canada. You support Mr. Faulkner? I suppose you do now, because your bread is buttered on the other side. I understand, Mr. Khan.
No.
He says, hang on. You said that we don't like people who behave in a way that is not in tune with Canadian values, Mr. Faulkner. And there's a minority that comes into this country, right? And they come in and they hold up various individuals. There are even people, please lower his fader. There are also people who support anti-Semitism, which you have a problem with. That's what you said, Mr. Faulkner. Yes or no?
Absolutely, I have a problem with that, yes.
Right. The Canadian Parliament, viewers, the Canadian Parliament honored a Hitler-supporting Nazi veteran. Can you believe that?
That's not a credible argument because we have a corrupt government with a corrupt prime minister. They can make fun of Justin Trudeau all they want or point him out to be the terrible guy he is. Bringing in and honoring a Yahtzee, funny mustache supporting guy into the House of Commons, that can't be reflected onto Canada as a whole. Because Canadians like myself and every other creator on here, we don't support that. There isn't a Yahtzee problem in Canada. There's not a Yahtzee movement in Canada. So this is not a credible argument to push back with.
And they talk about tolerance for other minorities and their rights. Mr. Faulkner doesn't know what he's talking about, viewers. He hasn't read his own unbiased account of his own international history and the history of his own political class. He's just an apologist for Trudeau. But that's okay.
If you want to link Najjar to Osama bin Laden,
it's okay. It's okay. I completely understand.
He's not an apologist for Trudeau. He should do a bit more research first.
Okay. The world will be a safer place if we all agree, viewers, that belong 6 feet under. But obviously we can't, because certain politicians, and Mr. Faulkner, to his credit, says in the end that, oh, well, you see, the Khalistan movement is deeply entrenched in the political, at this moment, milieu of Canada. So he acknowledges that all this is happening because of this. Now, he says, viewers, that, you see, we don't like people talking about various things like state breakup, etc., etc. I would want to ask Mr. Faulkner, do you support the Quebecois movement, sir?
No, I do not.
No, you do
However,
not.
the Quebec movement is Canadian.
He doesn't like Quebec separatists, but he doesn't mind them on his soil when they talk about Khalistan. You see, viewers, these people have not read History 101, and they're on hard facts tonight.
He held his ground pretty good on there. I mean, he basically brought him on as like this hit piece, but he's kind of exposing his lack of knowledge of Harrison Faulkner at the very least here, because Harrison Faulkner obviously does not support Justin Trudeau. The whole network he's on there, True North, is a right-wing conservative network. I can't say I've ever seen him put up a supportive broadcast article video supporting Justin Trudeau, so he's not a Trudeau apologist. You spoke the truth on the current issues. Obviously the truth hurts. The interviewer didn't distinguish between foreign hits being ordered on Canadian soil and war, nor does he distinguish between Canadian separatist movements and foreign separatist movements operating on Canadian soil. I don't believe he is stupid. He is therefore disingenuous. You're a leftist Trudeau apologist without any evidence being provided. You've taken the position of the RCMP as gospel and chose to believe the FBI at the same time. Does that mean their indictment of Trump as a Russian mole also holds true? Childlike awe of authority. So a little bit of pushback here on Harrison Faulkner. I haven't seen the information that was leaked to the RCMP or the FBI have or whatever. The same token, though, I'm going to call it the news reporter here as I see it. I've seen, obviously, tons of videos of Harrison Faulkner. The guy's not a Trudeau supporter. There you have it. Indian government saying Trudeau planted Sandeep into the CBSA to bring in more of his terror lords from India. Is this true? I don't know. It's crazy, though. This is primetime Indian news, which goes out to not millions, but 1.4 billion people. Or in other words, India's population is 35 times bigger than Canada. The question is now, will Justin Trudeau respond to these allegations? He's got a big pile on the docket there he's got to respond to. Or is he just going to sweep it under the rug like business as usual? Nothing's going on. Nothing at all.